Hello.
Greetings. We're on page 105 of Crisis of Conscience in the chapter Tradition and Legalism. He's been talking here about the hesitancy of many of the governing body members to change any policies based on the pragmatic consideration that, well, we might lose some credibility. And then in the next few pages he gets into that issue. Should that be a consideration even? Yeah. The leaders might lose credibility if we change this policy now.
Or the confidence of the witnesses.
Yeah, and this is, of course, in the late 70s, so he's making the point over and over again, apparently, at the governing body meetings, that no, we can't continue on this way, sometimes even with a majority who want to change it, but pragmatism kicks in, and, of course, that just justifies ongoing dogmatism. Another clue to the thinking in such cases was the emphasis often placed on the long-standing nature of a particular policy. Hence, through the years, thousands had abided by the Society's policy, even though it created a severe burden for them, perhaps leading to imprisonment or other suffering. Here he's talking particularly about alternate service. To change now, it was argued, might make such ones feel that what they had undergone had been unnecessary, and whereas they had found personal satisfaction in suffering in such way, viewing it as suffering for righteousness' sake, now they might feel disillusioned, possibly even feel it unfair that they had endured a form of martyrdom while others now could escape such.
I found that hard to equate with the spirit the Scripture encourage. It seems that such ones ought instead to rejoice in knowing that others would not be called upon to undergo that burden in order to stay in good standing in the organization. If, as an illustration, a person had lost a farm due to heavy taxation, should he not rejoice on behalf of friends faced with a similar loss if he learned that the heavy tax was lifted? Should not a miner suffering with a lung ailment be happy if conditions in mines improved, even though he could no longer benefit from this? It seemed that a genuine Christian would.
The attitude over which some body members expressed grave concern appeared to reflect more the spirit of the men in Jesus' account of the vineyard, those men who had endured the heat and hard work over long hours, and who felt it unfair that the 11th hour workers did not have to undergo such to receive the same recompense they did. Or that of the prodigal son's older brother, who said to his father, "Here it is, so many years I have slaved for you, and never once did I transgress your commandments," and who felt it unfair that his younger brother should not have to do the same to gain his father's approval. Again, it seemed to me that to expect brothers to be anything but happy if others did not have to suffer what they had suffered would be to impute wrong motives to them. It appeared to me that we needed to ask ourselves how much of the concern expressed might not be traceable to a concern over the governing body's own image, its credibility, and its hold on people's confidence, being affected by fear that admitting error could weaken this.
The results that came out of these divided decisions were by no means inconsequential. Failure to conform to a governing body decision once published or made known could and did bring disfellowshipping, being cut off from congregation, family, and friends. To conform, on the other hand, might require giving up a certain employment, sometimes when jobs were scarce and costs of caring for a family were great. It could mean taking a stand against a marriage partner's wishes, a stand that could, and sometimes did, lead to divorce, the breaking up of a marriage, home, and family, separating children from, I've lost my place here. The breaking up of a marriage, home, and family, separating children from father and mother. It could mean feeling compelled to refuse to obey a certain law, and then being arrested and sent away from family and home to a place of imprisonment. It could, in fact, mean loss of life itself, or what can be even more difficult to bear, to see loved ones lost in death. To illustrate the difficulties that might arise even when a change was made in some earlier ruling, consider the organizational position taken regarding hemophiliacs and the use of blood fractions, generally platelets or factor VIII, to control against fatal bleeding.
For many years, inquiries sent by hemophiliacs to the headquarters organization or its branch offices received the reply that to accept such blood fraction one time could be viewed as not objectionable, as in effect medication, but to do so more than once would constitute a feeding on such blood fraction and therefore be considered a violation of the scriptural injunction against eating blood. Years later, this ruling changed. Those staff members who worked at answering correspondence knew that in the past they had sent out letters to the contrary, and that hemophiliacs who had taken their one-time injection were still under the impression that to do so again would be counted as a violation of Scripture. They could bleed to death because of holding to such a stand.
The administration was not in favor of publishing the new position in print, since the old position had never been put in print, but only conveyed to the particular individuals inquiring. To publish something would require first explaining what the old position had been, and then explaining that it was now obsolete. This did not seem desirable, so the staff workers made a diligent search through their files to try to find the names and addresses of all such persons, and another letter was sent to each advising of the change. The staff workers felt better about this. Then they realized that many of the inquiries had come in by phone, and that they had no record of such phone calls, and absolutely no way of determining who such inquiring hemophiliacs were. Whether in the interim between the old ruling and the new some had died, they did not know. Whether some whom they had not been able to contact would yet die because of holding to the old ruling, they did not know. They only knew that they had followed instructions, being loyally obedient to their superiors in the organization. That's awful.
Yeah, and what is that but pride? Yeah, you can do it as Ray does at the end of this book and say, well, it's a case of every single one of the governing body. At least he gives them the benefit of the doubt that they're doing it for the reason that they do believe that this is God's organization. But it's still religious pride, whether it's in your own judgments or in the collective judgment of all.
Yeah.
What's our link? It is Watchtower Dogmatism Caves into Pragmatism. This is a link to a video we did on Ray Franz's second book, In Search of Christian Freedom. Early in that book, he talks about this same issue and expands on it and gives some more examples. So check out this video. Next time he concludes his argument about tradition and legalism, and even makes the point that the Supreme Court of the United States often is more reasonable on these things and even more scriptural than the Watchtower is. See you next time.